Gemini brain. Gemini, 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 Gemini brain.
I think we got something.
Hello, hello. Does she have another microphone? Yes, she does. I can't stop. A little hot goss in the human design community is Pop HD, and there have been a lot of people commenting on Pop HD not being canon. There have always been people who want to stick to raw and the original translation, the original download. So, human design, if you are new or unaware, was channeled in 1987 by a man named Uru Hu, originally born Robert Allen Krakauer. He is a manifester, a 5-1 splenic manifester, born in Canada, and he was in Ibiza when it happened. And it was basically like a 7-day like super channel. Now, Ra is kind of a unlikely character. He's a little bit of a curmudgeon. He, some of the original languaging in human design for the profiles, for example, we have a heretic, we have the opportunist, we have the martyr. So some of it sounds a little bit like unpleasant at first. And Rod definitely had his own specific way of speaking as a middle-aged man in the 80s might, a manifester no less. Since then, Rod's original translation, he downloaded this system. It's a synthesis of the Chinese I Ching, which is like 5,000, oh my gosh, 5,000 years old, the Kabbalah tree of life, the chakra system, the Hindu Brahmin chakra system, also an ancient system, and tropical astrology. So these systems are not new in any way, shape, or form. They've been around for millennia by the time Ra got the download that they can be layered on top of each other to synthesize this new human design system. So Ra then spent the rest of his life, I think he died in the early to mid 2000s, and he spent the rest of his days from 87 till he passed in 2000s teaching about human design, going around leading workshops. You can purchase a lot of his original audio courses and translations on Jovian Archive. And there, before maybe 8 years ago, it was really a gate kept system. You had to go through the official governing body in order to learn about human design. So there have been a lot of people now that teach about it online. It's a lot more accessible. You can find your chart in a lot of places, and people are really learning about experimenting with and synthesizing the system and sharing about their experiences, which has resulted in new information, new translations, new connections to the information. Ross said that the system was really going to be helpful for children, but in order for it to be helpful for children, the people raising the children really need to know about themselves, about the system, about what is in alignment or not, or we're just going to be passing on conditioning. And we're coming into an era now where it is possible for people, for six lines especially, who have the three big phases of life. Like before now, there were no six lines who were conscious in the first 30 in their 3-line phase. So there are people, I've done readings for young people pre-Saturn return who are really learning about their chart, who have this information available, who are getting to know themselves and able to get into that experiment sooner, to decondition sooner. So theoretically, there's less conditioning to let go of. And with all things, mutation, evolution, new information is garnered and perhaps even being channeled and experimented with. We're learning, we're sharing. And I think it's a pretty cool time to, even just from when I learned about human design in 2018 until now, to watch how popular the system has become. So back to Pop HD. So there's some people on Instagram that have been sort of like getting into this conversation about what is Pop HD, what is canon, as it were. If it's not from Raw, it's not original. And I think that, with all things, there is a positive aspect to being discerning from where you're getting your information, and that there are other voices and experiments and translations available and going on. I personally really like learning about the system from multiple sources. I do love listening to Ra's original translations. I have the original book, and I also really value the input from other people, other types who have been in the experiment longer than I have or for the same amount of time that I have too. I always find it helpful to get different perspectives. And there are people, I noticed in one of the comment sections, there was a girl who was like, yeah, I kind of fell prey to this. I'm a manifester, but I have projected channels. And I was really feeling like I'm a new type. I'm a projected manifester. And I was trying to teach about that. So it is always, I would say that in particular, most channels are projected channels. Every channel has a different energy type. So it doesn't mean that it changes your functional aura. So you could be a manifester with only projected channels. There's only 3 manifester channels: the 1222, the 3536 that come from the emotional center, and the 4521 that come from the ego center. Those are the only 3 manifested channels. All of the generator channels come off of the sacral. So only one goes to the throat. That is the Manny Gen. It's like the Manny Gen channel. And then everything else is a projected channel. So there's a lot of projected energy in the chart. It does not mean that you have to wait for an invitation as a manifester, but it provides more nuance to your particular chart about how to use that energy while you're working with other people, while you're working in a group setting. You still have the initiatory manifestor energy and aura, and some of your channels might like a more nuanced invitation when you're bringing that to somebody else. And I would say that perhaps this person, when she was experiencing that or kind of wallowing in the, oh my gosh, I'm a manifestor, but I have to wait, that's a bit of conditioning, because oftentimes manifestors start out as people pleasers or are conditioned to be people pleasers. Don't be so loud, ask for permission, sit down. There's a little bit of there can be a bit of a tendency to want to harness and control that energy. There can also be like a little bit of a good girl kink if you are a manifestor, if you grew up anywhere close to organized religion. All these things can be conditioning and wounding that is sort of packing on into your system. So, and everybody is a human. Ra was a human being fraught with all the conditioning and like bolstered by the surroundings in the late 80s. I think that he was a genius. I think that he did a great job. Like, I can't imagine learning this system for the first time in a download like meditation situation, then going like, shit, I guess now this is what I do. I'm like gonna teach people about this crazy ass, like, it had to come from a manifester, and it probably had to come from a man manifester in the late 80s, because it's, can you, no, I mean, I had my own challenges seeing myself as a spiritual person in in the late 20 whatevers. And this system has been around for 36 years, and I am not the first, and I am not the only, and I still had a lot of questions and doubts. So that's number one, is that any human being is going to have a lens that they are filtering things through. The more people that you are learning from, the more diverse those lenses are. And you can collect your favorites, okay? Two, I think that people were singling out specifically, it sounded like, in this sort of pop HD debate, somebody who I learned from and who for 3 years was receiving, and for a few years I was getting referrals from. Somebody that I admire, somebody that I think has done a great job bringing the system into for new people that don't know about the system. She does a great, and I think a lot of people found human design through her lens. And there has been some criticism for changing some of the language because heretic And martyr, learning that you are a heretic martyr or a hermit opportunist is like, it doesn't sound that good in today's day and age. I think getting a diversified input of where you're learning your information from is also helpful in this case, because if you're learning from somebody that is explaining things with different language, there will be a challenging point because you're not speaking the same dialect, as it were, as like the original human design translation. So I appreciate knowing what the original was and then learning from people who are diversifying and changing and evolving the system. 3, we're in Pluto and Aquarius. Like, we are here to have a renaissance. The whole point of the system is the science of differentiation, is of getting to know yourself, is of an experiment. It's called the human design experiment. So no two people are going to have the same experience, experiment, and even like experience of yourself. I'm part of a manifestor women's group that I've been a part of since I found human design in 2018 on Facebook. And last weekend, we had a book club where the 60 of us, 60 manifestor women, were in a Zoom call. And there was a conversation about how does the aura actually work. Originally, Ra explains it as being closed and repelling. And then there's some talk about it being really big and impactful. So people notice when you enter a room or when you leave a room, and your movements are sort of like a lot of people are unable to, the theory is that people are unable to sort of anticipate what you're going to do. So that's why the informing piece for manifestors comes through in order to sort of give people an energetic blinker like, hey, I'm going to move over here, because it can be very jarring when you're moving that big energy around. Now, in this group of manifestors, there were quite a few people who said, listen, I don't feel my lived experience as a manifestor is not that I have a big impactful aura. It's dense. That was what the word that we sort of landed on, was that the aura, it has a density to it. But there were some people who said, yes, I feel eyes on me when I walk into a room, and I feel the movement when I leave. And other people were saying, I can kind of sneak around. People don't know I'm there, and I sneak up on you. It's almost like a black hole, this dense black hole where people can't sort of see in. And I found it so fascinating that there were these people with the same quote unquote aura type experiencing themselves moving through the world in a different way. I wonder. And it's really hard to accurately determine how you feel to somebody else. And I think it's interesting that there were so many different experiences in this room of people who I had been taught have a big aura. So perhaps big isn't the right word for everybody. I would say that it probably depends on a lot of other nuance in your chart. Are your arrows right or left? Are you here to be observed or observing? What centers do you have defined? Do you want to be perceived? I think, you know, there's so much nuance in every single chart. This just drives home that human design, the science of differentiation, is going to feel, taste, and be understood differently to every person that comes through this initiation and who gets to know themselves through this system, which I think is so fucking cool. So I don't think there's anything wrong with people digesting and reiterating in new words and in new ways information that was channeled during a week by a guy. In the late 80s, I think it's really important to have different voices talking about the system. And and I think it's also so important to remember that it is the science of differentiation for a reason, and that there is no one size fits all. So just be cautious. I don't want to tell you what to do, but I would encourage you to be cautious and cognizant about, is this person saying everybody's experience, especially when there's numbers involved, when there's somebody saying, okay, projectors, you work this many hours a day and you rest this many hours a day. It's going to be different for every projector. There are some projectors who you could have 8 centers defined out of the 9 and be a projector. I'm gonna venture to say that that person experiences an amount of energy that's different than a projector who has 2 centers defined. No one is designed to be exhausted either. So this is a whole nother diatribe, but alignment will help you, barring illness and injury, and if you are able to be in alignment with your energy, if you're really able to get to know yourself, you won't be experiencing exhaustion all the time. This is something that I'm still learning about. I think a lot of non-sacral beings, I heard somebody the other day, Adrienne Roach, who's a manifester that I look up to, and she was saying that a lot of manifestors flirt with burnout. And that's like your rest cycle is actually just coming after you like approaching burnout, and then your body is being forced to take it. So that's it. I digress. Okay. Let me just get a little drink here and collect my thoughts. Okay, so watch the numbers, watch anybody saying like just big swooping every manifestor, every projector, every generator, because everybody is a different somebody, and everybody has had different childhood experiences. Everybody has had different conditioning. Everybody has had different, and everybody comes at it with a different chart, and you're starting from a different place, and you have your own unique perspective. You're standing on your own little hill. You've planted your flag where you've planted it. You've come to learn and experience something so specific and interesting to you. So, taking somebody else's interpretation of the system as martial law and not digesting and implementing and experimenting with, like, is this true for me? Have I experienced it like this? If not, can I throw it out, or would I like to experience that? Perhaps you would like to experience more creative urges and there's a block there, or perhaps you're a projector and you're tired and you're not waiting for the invitation and you'd like to experience that more, and you hear other projectors talking about their alignment and that sounds really yummy to you. That's a sign. The things that like pique your interest, the things that excite you, the things that like make your, oh, have you sit up and pay attention, are signs that that's something for you to explore. So I think that most people are trying their best. Most people, trying is a weasel word. Most people are doing their best. Most people are out here fighting the good fight, doing their best, just doing their best, And some people's best is like less good than other people's best. And there's certainly better days than others. And you know yourself better than anyone ever could. And if you don't, and if you haven't given yourself the gift of getting to know you, I implore you to start using your chart as a rubric for where am I consistent? Where am I in this energy? How is it explained that I can use my energy with the world? And then trying it out. That is really the important part here. Doing the experimentation, trying it out. What does it actually look, feel, taste, sound like in the real world? Ooh, that didn't work. Go back to the drawing board. And also, like, I think that there are many voices needed in order to spread the good word. Like, I think the system is so rad. Do I think you can be in alignment without knowing about human design? 100%. Do I think you could be in alignment just using the chakra system or Kabbalah or I Ching or your religion? Sure. Yes, 100%. This has been a game changer for me, and I'm still consistently learning, and I'm still consistently reminding myself that I am my own authority. My body has information for me. If something doesn't feel good, I can explore that a little bit deeper and ask, like, why doesn't that feel good? Is this conditioning? Is this just like, that's an opinion I don't want to ingest and digest? No, thank you. Blech. give it back. So, the more you can get to know yourself, the more you can get to know where your energy cycles, and the more that you can really be honest about, am I using my chart against myself? Am I looking for reasons to just like, I'm not ready yet? Or am I outsourcing my validation? Do I really want someone else to tell me that I'm a good girl or that I'm doing it right? Perhaps that's a sign to do a little tapping. Where am I ignoring my truth? So, in short, I don't think that pop HD is like, I don't know. I don't even really think it's a fucking thing. It's just different people's perspectives. I think taking something that's general and trying to apply it specifically to you, it's like reading your horoscope for just your sun sign without knowing that there's an entire chart, an entire natal chart behind it. Sure. Yeah. That's not going to resonate as much as getting a natal chart reading, getting little snippets that somebody is putting together to help introduce people to the system is not going to be as impactful as getting a reading or really getting to know yourself through whatever meditation, your chart, tapping, preferences, following your pleasure. Like listening to your intuition is going to be, in my opinion, superior to listening to somebody else. I don't know why I started that. I don't know where I was going with that. So I'm just going to stop there. Diversifying your input, or I think diversifying your input is important when you're learning about something new, unless you found someone that you're like, I love the way that this is translated, but understanding that it is coming through that specific person's lens and your experiment, your experience, your life is more explosive and nuanced and delicious than an Instagram, you know, or a quiz or whatever. So take what feels good. No need to throw shade. There's room for everybody. And I think having more seats at the table diversifies the conversation. More people knowing themselves diversifies the conversation. I don't know. I really have enjoyed listening to different people's inputs. Anyway, that is my little soapbox for human design, different interpretations, pop HD. Pop is popular for a reason, you know? Like things are basic because they are well loved. I don't want to drink a pumpkin spice latte every day, but I love a pumpkin spice latte. You know what I'm saying? Like, and there's nothing wrong with liking something that a lot of other people like.